Vegas is a 24-hour town, and nearly a fourth of its workforce is up at what most people consider ungodly hours. It is not at all unusual to see pale, distinguished-looking men in tuxedos carrying around lumpy sacks that turn out to contain laundry at 3 a.m. They are captains and maitre d's and baccarat dealers and musicians getting off late shifts. Women in bikinis and thongs doing their weekly marketing just before sunrise are common sights in Vegas. No, he had to be white, and probably well-dressed, possibly with a late-model car. A very middle-class type of character, not a sneaking second-story type with turtleneck sweater, mask, and tennis shoes. Having spoken of my theory to Vincenzo and having met with his usual stone wall of resistance, I kicked it on up to the managing editor, Llewellyn Cairncross, who looked at me out of his one good eye and said with his customary tact, "Bullshit, Kolchak. For years I have suspected you were mentally deranged, and now I have confirmation of that suspicion. Why don't you go to Alaska or Florida or anywhere and plague somebody else for a change?" So, very patiently, while jamming his office door shut so he couldn't throw me out, I went over everything I had come up with, including the tight-lipped comments from the police department and the sheriff's office. "Okay, Lou, what conclusion do you come to?" He started to fire off one of his legendary put-downs, and it died before it ever rolled off his tongue. He slammed his mouth shut and stared at me with that bloodshot eye. Then he called the boss, Jacoby Jake Herman, editor and publisher. Herman the Heinous, Herman the Magnificent, part crusader, part charlatan. Once the scourge of crooked politicians, now a political kingmaker. Before Howard Hughes came to our fair city, he was one of the state's biggest wheeler-dealers, and I suspect he could still teach the bashful billionaire a few tricks, and probably will. I went to sit with Jake's assistant, Bess Melvin, a truly lovely person who could smell a news item through 2 feet of reinforced concrete. The 15 years she'd devoted to Jake Herman showed in the frustration and tiny crow's feet on her thin, attractive face. I've always thought it too bad that she didn't own and run the Daily News. Too bad for the public, and, as it turned out later, too bad for me. The phone rang. Bess picked it up and handed it to me. The receiver growled with electronic venom. "Kolchak, you miserable son of a bitch! If you ever go over Vincenzo's head again." I let him sputter on. When he paused for breath, I got in my 2 cents worth, and he surprised me by telling me to write the goddamn piece any way I saw fit. He told me to have Lou come into his office. I motioned to our distinguished managing editor, and he entered the sanctum sanctorum. I returned to my typewriter and explained to the public all the things I have just explained to you, put the words in United Press's best recommended style, and headed for home in the sure and certain belief that on May 12th, I would either be well on my way to a Nevada State Press Association award for the best crime story of the year, or out of town on a rail.